However you look at it, Rachel Reeves is in a mess. And it's a mess pretty well of her own making, but we could blame Brexit too. In an ideal world, Brexit would have ushered in a glorious age of global Britain, a hub of free trade, sovereign policy making, economic dynamism, joy for all. Instead, of course, it's not that at all. Mrs. May dragged her feet. The naysayers complained, and what we've got is the worst of both worlds, the worst form of Brexit, where nothing is positive. And now we've got a Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, preparing to squeeze another £15 billion from an already exhausted public purse, while simultaneously attempting to appease a capricious, tariff-happy Donald Trump. Never were the words of Harold Macmillan so relevant. Events, dear boy, events. This week, Reeves delivers her spring statement under the economic equivalent of a gathering storm, and the Office for Budget Responsibility is expected to slash the 2025 growth forecast from 2% to around 1%, and the fiscal headroom that she once touted, $9.9 billion, has evaporated. Reeves is now $4 billion in the red, clinging to her rule of balancing the books by 2029 to 2030, and she'll try undoubtedly to blame all this on the Conservatives and the £22 billion black hole. Her options limited and deeply political. First, she's announced cuts: $5 billion from welfare, $2 billion redirected from overseas aid to defence, a further $1 billion clawed back via improved tax compliance, tens of thousands of civil service jobs on the chopping block, with 10,000 lost by 2029 to 30. It's bluntly austerity by stealth. And all of this is eclipsed by one man, Donald Trump. Trump's threats to slap punitive tariffs on global imports, including UK goods, as early as April the 2nd, ominously dubbed World Tariff Day, are more than bombast. The UK steel industry, for instance, employs over 70,000 people directly or via the supply chain and stands to lose hundreds of millions if the US duties stick. Already, British steel exports to the US were valued at $364 million in 2024. These are not abstract concerns, they are existential concerns for key sectors. And to avoid this economic cliff edge, Reeves has hinted that she may revise or even drop the digital services tax. This 2% levy, introduced in 2020, targets global tech giants such as Alphabet, Amazon and Meta, Facebook, and is projected to bring in £800 million this year. Trump has long seen this tax as anti-American. It's not hard to see why. The US dominates the global tech industry, and any attempt by foreign governments to tax their digital operations strikes Washington as a protectionist slight. So, in exchange for dodging retaliatory tariffs, Reeves may offer a £700 million tax break to the very companies Labour once promised to rein in. Silicon Valley smiles. British taxpayers frown, especially those just hit by cuts to disability benefits. Critics like the Lib Dem Daisy Cooper have rightly said this risks becoming a case of robbing the disabled to reward Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. It's a potent line, and Labour will wear it until they explain the logic more clearly. And there is logic, however bitter. The UK's digital tax was always meant to be temporary, a bridge until the OECD agreement on global corporate taxation was finalised, and that agreement now looks increasingly elusive. Trump, no friend to multilateralism, is likely to derail any attempt to revive it. So, Reeves faces a treacherous dilemma. Preserve £800 million in revenue by keeping the DST and risk billions in lost exports, or capitulate and lose the tax revenue but keep trade flowing. Keir Starmer's recent meeting with Trump has not delivered a breakthrough, but it may have opened the door to a bespoke deal. US negotiators, led by Vice President J.D. Vance, the hamster, are reportedly prioritising free speech concerns, referring to Britain's Online Safety Act as part of a wider trade talk. In other words, the UK must not only bend on tax, but also on its regulation of tech platforms. What does this say about Brexit Britain? Toading to America. It says that the promise of flexible, independent trade policy is only as strong as your bargaining position, and our bargaining position at the moment is weak. Trapped between failing growth, rising debt, Trumpian belligerents, The Chancellor finds herself offering concessions she would rather avoid, while also cutting domestic programmes that strike at Labour's traditional support base. Reeves's spring statement is less a fiscal plan and more a crisis management memo. It's shaped not just by sluggish growth and Brexit aftershocks, but by an erratic US president who seems determined to use tariffs as both cudgel and theatre. The Chancellor is trying to be pragmatic. She wants to save jobs, she wants to preserve trade, sustain her fiscal rule, but in doing so, she may be forced into a Faustian bargain, sacrificing moral clarity and progressive policy for a short-term economic stability of sorts on Trump's terms. And that, in the end, is the tragedy of Britain's current economic diplomacy. It's not so much that things are bad, it's that they got worse the day Donald Trump rediscovered tariffs and remembered our phone number.